Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's What's New with AdX training. I'm your AdX trainer Asha here, and I'm also really lucky enough to be joined by 4 product managers today. So we have a packed agenda today, so let's get started. So here's what we'll be walking through today. We're going to kick things off with our mobile PM Haskell, who will be running through some exciting mobile releases for this month. Then we'll be passing over to Benya, our video PM, who's going to be talking through the latest video releases. We're then going to go over to our Marketplace PM, Krish, who will be walking us through a cool new workflow. And then finally, we'll be handing over to our PM, George, who will be covering 3 new RTB releases, including OpenRTB. So if you're familiar with these trainings, you can submit questions to us at any time. And if you're unfamiliar, then the Q&A panel is located towards the left-hand navigation panel. So if you click that button, it'll open up a new Q&A UI, and you can submit your questions through there. And we'll air the questions at the end of the training during the live Q&A session. So I hope everyone is ready. So I'm going to be passing over to Haskell, who will be talking us through our mobile updates.
Hi everyone. We're going to start off today with a few updates on mobile. And the first update that we want to talk about is our impression tracking URL for prefetched ad impressions. As a little bit of historical context around this release, we're seeing that more and more publishers, and particularly app publishers, are prefetching impressions. And so what that means is, for example, if you're a music app publisher, you might request an ad as soon as a user loads up your app, but you might not actually display that ad until later. So for example, when a song ends, that might be when your banner or when your interstitial is actually displayed. And as a result, there can be a discrepancy between the time that you as a bidder win the auction and the time that your ad is actually rendered. And that discrepancy can be a big problem for bidders. It means that you might have an artificially high count of impressions and an artificially high count of spend, and as a result, your click-through rate may also look artificially low. And the goal of this release is to make sure that the numbers for you as a bidder are going off of the actual number of rendered impressions and are aligned with AdX stats so that there are no discrepancies and you have an accurate count of impressions and click-through rate. The way that we solve for this is that we now allow you as a bidder to submit an impression tracking URL in your bid response. So instead of sending the impression tracking URL built into your actual creative code, which causes it to be fired as soon as you win the auction, if you take it out of the creative code and you submit the impression tracking URL in the bid response, AdX will fire that impression tracking URL when the ad actually renders and not when you first win the auction. And that will help to eliminate that discrepancy between won impressions and rendered impressions. There are a few things to note about this release. First of all, while this is primarily focused on mobile app and mobile app interstitials, where this is the biggest problem, this actually works for app, for mobile web, for desktop web, and for native, all in the same field. So that allows you to have consistent workflows for your creatives regardless of environment. We also support the impression tracking URL for those of you that pre-submit creatives via the REST API. So that allows you to pre-submit creatives for approval when using this impression tracking URL. And finally, just a note that for VAST video, you should still continue to use your current workflow, and you should not use this because impression tracking URL will be in the actual VAST as your impression ping. And so the one exception to this is you should not use it for VAST video, but it works for app, for web, and for native. And it's a best practice that we recommend to reduce any discrepancies. The next mobile update that we wanted to talk about is the hardware version signal. And what this is in the bid request now, within the device field, we send a signal called hardware_version, or an OpenRTB, it's HWV. And that's actually the version of the iOS kind of submodel that you can expect to receive. So, for example, iPhone 5, iPhone 6 Plus, it tells you the exact type of iOS device that the user is on, because it's difficult to figure that out from the user agent or from the model field. We've already offered this for Android for a long time in the model field, but we're now making it so that you can tell this for iOS as well in this hardware version field in both the AdX Proto and an OpenRTB. And this can allow you to more effectively target if you want to go after iOS users that are on a specific model of an iPhone or an iPad or something similar. And with that, I think we're going to turn it over to Benya for video updates.
Cool. So on video, we're going to talk about 3 video updates today. So the first one is we're going to talk about what we call the removal of WebM, a requirement. Great. So what we do now is, previously AdX would require various types of media, but we're, in the name of simplifying things, we now only require MP4. And what this basically means is that WebM is now an optional type of media to be sent on an ad request. So it is no longer required, and it is now fully optional. So if you do want to send WebM in your VAST, as you are already doing, you're welcome to continue to do that. There can be players that do play WebM, and we may still play it, but it is no longer a requirement. Right now, if you have a single MP4 media, that is sufficient for all of AdX video inventory. Cool. So the second one that we're going to talk about is VPay 2. So with VPay 2, recently there is a lot of growth in mobile, obviously, and with VPay 2, we have the advantage of having cross-platform support of the VPay format. So the VPay format traditionally with VPay 1 was only supported in desktop web and only in Flash. But with VPay 2, the key difference is that there's now support for HTML5 JavaScript as well as Flash context. And so this basically means that now that AdX supports VPay 2, that you're able to run VPay creatives across all of web environments. So this includes, for example, mobile web, tablet web, desktop web. You're able to do either HTML5 and Flash, but you can basically have the VPay that runs in a completely cross-platform manner. The one case to still watch out for is mobile app. So VPay is currently not supported in mobile app. So if you, according to the VPay spec from IAB, it is really only supported for web environments. So VPay in-app is something that we are thinking about, but for now, our VPay 2 support in AdX covers the web environments only. So in order to use this, VPay 2 works in much the same way that VPay 1 did, and it's just been extended now to HTML5 as well as Flash. So in order to actually bid with a VPay, in the same way you want to pay attention to the excluded attribute field. So if you have the excluded attribute equals 30 for VPay, then that means that you cannot use VPay. If this VPay attribute has not been excluded, then that means that VPay is an eligible request. Now, to know whether you should return a HTML5 VPay or whether you should turn a Flash VPay, what you can do is pay attention to the video format, which is going to tell you whether it's coming from a Flash player or an HTML5 player, and you can choose the appropriate VPay to return. If you want, you can return both HTML5 and Flash VPay within one VAST. That will also play fine on AdX. So finally, we're going to talk about video support in Creative Explorer. So Creative Explorer is a place where within the bidding tab of AdX, you can find many attributes about our creatives. So for example, for video creatives, what you would do is, you can find in the list of creatives, like typically, fields that we show are, a very high level approved status, or whether it's disapproved. And if it's disapproved, we'll give you some basic summary of why that is the case. So for video, the interesting thing is that we're adding, much detail support. So whether you have, copy and pasted a VAST or a VAST URL, what you can actually do is, beyond kind of the traditional SSL status and invalid SSL URLs, you're able also to see many other fields that we detect around the video specifically. So things like whether AdX considers that a VAST tag contains vpaid, whether it is skippable, the duration, for example, whether it's 15 seconds, 30 seconds, which MIME types are included, MP4, WebM, FLV. All of those things are possible to see within this Creative Explorer detailed view. So it's basically your one-stop shop if you want to see, what AdX considers about a video creative. Great. So next we'll talk about Marketplace.
Thanks, Benya. Hello, everyone. I'm Krish Sundaresan, Product Manager in DFP and AdX, primarily focused on Programmatic Direct. So today there are a couple of things that we wanted to talk about as far as the Marketplace goes. Next slide, please. So one is a major revamp of the Marketplace that's coming up that we're getting ready to launch, called the Marketplace RFP workflow. And second was to talk about Marketplace Client Access. This was a feature across the AdX buy side that was generally launched to general availability late last year. So we're going to spend some time talking about what is it and what's its advantage to you buyers. So today, the way the Marketplace effectively works is that it allows you to, as a buyer, to be able to come in and do a search based on some criteria of inventory that you're looking for to make deals. So for example, you could be a buyer looking specifically for video in-stream inventory, for a specific duration on inventory for users in the US. So today the way that works is that when you go into the Marketplace and do the search, we'll effectively filter and show you the set of publishers who have products or offers that match that criteria. So for example, if in this particular case, it turns out that CNN has created a preferred deal product or a private auction product that specifically targets video inventory and allows for supporting a certain specific duration, then we then show you the fact that CNN has that inventory and the fact that there are a bunch of these products that match that given search criteria, which effectively means that the set of inventory and the set of results that we can show you in the Marketplace is purely dependent upon a publisher having created the right set of packaged up inventory as products or offers and publish them into the Marketplace. In fact, today when you go and do this very search in the Marketplace, you will see exactly 4 results. And this is a problem. The problem is that not all publishers know exactly what you as a buyer are looking for. So the way they package up inventory may not necessarily match the way you are looking as a buyer to find and buy your inventory. Secondly, it's also a challenge in terms of publishers finding, even if we had 20 different publishers in here or 100 different publishers in here, at the end of the day, the feedback that you have told us is that it's not always the case that a given publisher's product exactly matches what you as a buyer are looking for. So to address both of these problems, we are now working on a complete revamp of the Marketplace. And this is something that has actually launched in a limited way to a select few buyers in a beta. And we are getting ready to launch this in to general availability in the first half of this year. So with this change, when you go and do that very search in the Marketplace, we will surface back to you all publishers that have inventory flowing through the exchange just matches the criteria that you're looking for. The way we find these publishers will be powered by DoubleClick's forecasting. It will not be powered by whether a particular publisher declares that they have certain kind of inventory. In fact, for this very search, in this new UI, to compare and contrast, the old form gave you 4 results, and the same result now gives you a practically limitless number of publishers, because given the amount of inventory that flows through AdX as an exchange, with more than 60 results of publishers with more than 1 million impressions that match this very search criteria. Now, when you were to, next slide please. Now, if you were to actually go and view one of these publishers, what is this results telling you? So in this case, let's take that first result, CNN.com. The 312 impressions that shows up there is us telling you that there are 312 impressions that we as Google have detected matches the criteria of what you search for. This is not the publisher telling you that they have so many impressions available. This is Google and Google's forecasting system effectively telling you what impression volume matches what you're looking for. And then in the expanded panel between, that's the panel that expands when you clicked on CNN. That expanded panel has two sections to it. The panel on the left effectively, and this is the new part, the panel on the left effectively tells you here is total impression volumes and statistics about CNN that matches what you're looking for. This tells you what is the split between, say, video and display, split between devices, impression volumes and uniques. All of that effectively updates itself based on the search. So the volume that you're looking now could be very different on CNN.com as opposed to if you were viewing CNN.com in the context of a completely different search criteria. On the right-hand pane, you have the list of products. This is what already exists, the list of products from CNN that matches the search criteria. Our goal here is to effectively show you a side-by-side view of both an entire publisher level inventory stat along with individual products that match what you're looking for. The key thing here is that we will surface to you this publisher regardless of whether they have these products available in the marketplace or not. So next slide, please. For example, if you were to now expand on that particular left-hand pane, you will see a more complete statistics of all things about that publisher that matches your particular query, including breakdown by devices, user geo, demographics, vertical information, top domains and apps from that publisher that matches what you're looking for, and so on. And you also now have the ability to now reach out to that publisher in the form of a simple RFP. This RFP effectively is the means for you to initiate a conversation with the publisher by automatically telling them the search criteria of what you are looking for, along with some simple details in terms of budgets and whatnot. And this is really our goal here really is to provide a simple, easy way for you to both find publishers and then be able to easily reach out to them. Next slide. The key thing here is that we would have shown you CNN.com even if there were no products from that publisher that match what you're looking for. Meaning that our goal with all this is to tell you, here are all publishers that match the search criteria for what you're looking for. Some of them may have products that match what you're looking for, some of them don't. Regardless, you have the option to either choose from those products to buy them directly for your spending needs if that matches your goals, or you can always reach out to that publisher to initiate a conversation with them for striking deals. Next slide. Now this update, this RFP workflow, like I said, is currently in a limited beta, and we are in the process of getting ready for a more general availability launch in the first half of this year. The second feature that we wanted to talk to you about today is client access. Now, client access effectively is a means by which you as a buyer can choose to give sandbox access to certain parts of the AdX buy-side UI to your end clients in order for you to better scale and manage spending through your seat. Now, the goal of this effort is effectively to give you the control to be able to say which of your clients you would like to delegate access to, what parts of the AdX buy-side UI that you will want to enable access for. And this includes sections like the marketplace, inventory discovery, active deals management UI, and so on. Now, from a marketplace standpoint, our goal here is to effectively let you have a more robust and scaled out way by which you can spend on programmatic direct. And with that in mind, we have essentially enabled the right set of controls that allows you to be able to say which clients, which of your users of those clients get access to the marketplace. Secondly, what degree of access do they get to the marketplace? everything from being able to only have a read-only view, to being able to initiate and negotiate proposals, to be actually able to strike and create deal IDs. And our goal here is effectively to allow you to scale out your marketplace usage and programmatic direct spend across your seat, and to allow you to do this in a way where regardless of whether you as a buyer have your own plans to create and build your own marketplaces within your DSP UIs, the idea is to provide you a solution that allows you to get the scale up going right away, while at the same time providing you enough controls for you to be able to decide what degree of access you want to provide. Now, there are other parts of the AdX buy-side UI that we are also working on enabling more access to clients. So in future, we're also working on other things like RTB breakout that you can then delegate access to your end clients for them to be able to easily debug and easily see what is how they are buying and how they're bidding for impressions on deals. Now, the goal we are hoping with this feature is that you can balance your needs between the kind of deals that you make and on a upfront basis as a buyer, and deals that are more campaign specific, where it makes sense for you to delegate access to your end clients. Slide, please. And again, there is a ton of information out there. There's a training video that we have published that gives you more details into client access. Do take a look, and if there's any questions, always feel free to reach out to us.
Great, thanks, Krish. Just to plug in, if anyone has any questions on anything that's been presented at the moment, mobile video, marketplace, then feel free to submit your questions for the Q&A right after this section. So I'll hand over to George now, who'll be running us through some cool RTB updates.
Great, thanks, Asha. So there are three things we're going to talk about. One is efficient callouts, which is a new feature we're rolling out this month. It's similar to selective callouts, but does some different things and behaves a little bit differently. We'll get into some of the details. Second, we're going to talk about a new field which was added to the RTB callout in late Q4, which many folks probably didn't build into their bidders because Q4 is busy, but it's probably useful to ingest historical CTR. We'll get into that. And then finally, OpenRTB. We've supported OpenRTB in a couple different ways over the years, but we're now formally supporting it, and you can get just straight up OpenRTB callouts directly from us without needing to use a converter on your side. So we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. So efficient callouts. The core idea behind what we're doing is to help you make more efficient use of your limited QPS. So in an ideal world, machine resources are super cheap, and you can get access to the entire exchange and bid on anything that you're interested in. Unfortunately, machine resources cost money, and a lot of our bidders are forced to make trade-offs between the amount of QPS they're able to receive. And what we're trying to do here is make it easier for a bidder to get access to the inventory they want, given these QPS limitations. So if you look at sort of just a flow diagram, you set your pre-targeting in our UI. You basically say, here are the types of callouts that I'm interested in, and then we have some logic in step 2 where we decide which callouts to actually send you. And then, of course, you'll send responses. There's some filtering before the auction runs. And then if you win the auction, then you make it all the way to the bottom. So during step 2, where we figure out what to send you, what we're doing is checking your pre-targeting. If it turns out that you have way more pre-targeting matches than QPS, we have to decide which of those many impression opportunities to actually send you. So maybe you've got very broad pre-targeting, and you're getting 100,000 QPS just or pre-targeting matches, but you've told us that you've only got 50,000 QPS, and so we're only sending you 50,000 QPS because that's all you can support. That means every second we have to decide which 50% of callouts to send and which 50% to drop. In this situation today, the decision is actually random. So we will randomly select one out of those two callouts to drop, and so there's not a lot of intelligence behind which callout you get. Selective callouts is essentially changing the way in which we decide which of those callouts to drop. And it's saying we're going to look at your historical bidding behavior, and based on what we think you're interested in buying, we're going to selectively keep the callouts that we think you're more interested in and drop the callouts that we think you're less interested in. This is a little bit different from selective callout filtering today, because selective callout filtering today it happens irrespective of whether you're QPS throttled. So if we notice, for instance, that you are never buying impressions in Australia, maybe your pre-targeting includes Australia, but you're never buying impressions in Australia, we'll automatically throttle your Australian impressions, even if you're not QPS constrained. Efficient callout throttling will only kick in if you are QPS constrained. These two things are going to happen in sequence. So selective callouts, as it occurs today, will continue to work. Once we go through the selective callout logic, if you are still QPS constrained, so we've got more impressions available than you have QPS to accept impressions, at that point we'll essentially prioritize them based on your historical bidding behavior, so that we're not just randomly dropping impressions to hit your QPS limit. We're doing it more intelligently. We've been running this in a limited test for the past several months, and based on some experimental data, we think that it's an enhancement. We see that bidders for whom QPS is an issue, when we turn on efficient callout throttling, they are essentially getting more impressions that they're interested in, they're bidding more often, and they're actually winning more often. So we're going to turn this on for the entire exchange later this month. Again, this will only impact you if you are QPS throttled. If you are sort of on the edge where sometimes you're QPS throttled and sometimes you're not, maybe you're only QPS throttled during peak hours, maybe 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, the way we handle that is we only turn on efficient callout filtering for the moment when you are QPS throttled. And this is based on a rolling 60-second window. So if you are QPS throttled right now, it will engage. An hour from now, if you're no longer QPS throttled, it will not engage. And so it should only be a positive thing for bidders and only apply for folks who have QPS limitations. So next thing, historical CTR. So this is a pretty quick update. Buried in the AdX protocol, I think some folks have already noticed this, some folks might not. We've added a new field for click-through rate, and this is basically a data sharing co-op. We already have a data sharing co-op for winning prices, so if you don't win an impression, someone else wins it, but both you and they are part of the data sharing co-op, you get the winning price. In the bid response feedback. The click-through rate is basically operating under the same data sharing principles. So for folks who participate in the co-op, their data gets aggregated, and so long as there are a minimum number of different seats who have click-through rate for this particular ad slot, if you are participating in the data sharing co-op, then you'll get this field populated in the callout. And it'll be a number between 0 and 1. -1 basically means that we don't have data available. And we think that this is a valuable new signal for folks to ingest and use in their bidding logic. So that's live today, available for everyone who's opted into the data sharing co-op, as a lot of people already are. Finally, OpenRTB. So most folks are probably pretty familiar with OpenRTB. Historically, there have been a lot of different RTB protocols. AdX was one of the earliest, and over time we've obviously updated our protocol. We add new fields all the time. In parallel, there's been a growth in terms of number of buyers who are using OpenRTB as a protocol. And based on interest from our bidders, we've decided to support this formally. So when you set up a bidder endpoint, you have a choice right now of 4 different protocols. To set this up, you can talk with your account team, but we're also going to be adding support for this to the REST API, so you can control this programmatically. But today, if you'd like to set up these bidder endpoints, talk with your account team. It's pretty easy for us to do. You'll have a choice of 4 different protocols. One is the standard AdX protocol, which folks get today, which uses protobuf encoding. The 3 new protocols are all OpenRTB. So one is OpenRTB 2.3 that also uses protobuf encoding, and then we support 2.2 and 2.3 with JSON encoding. What we found is that JSON is dramatically less efficient as a means of transmitting data than protobuf. The size of a protobuf message is significantly smaller, and so protobuf is advantageous for Google because it saves us resources, but also for bidders because it saves you a lot of resources. So in most cases, we recommend that people use protobuf. Anyone who's using the AdX protocol today is using protobuf, but we will support JSON for low QPS levels. So if you need 5K or less QPS, we'll allow you to set up a bidder endpoint that uses JSON encoding. One other thing to note is that because of some of the differences between the OpenRTB protocol and the AdX protocol, not everything that you get today in the AdX protocol is available in OpenRTB. In general, our protocol contains a lot more data than most of the other protocols out there, including OpenRTB. Many of the fields that people have asked for, we've added to the OpenRTB protocol as extensions, but there are some things that are less used or less asked for that exist in the AdX protocol that have not been built as extensions in the OpenRTB implementation. If there's something in there that you really, really want, let your account team know, and we can consider adding additional extensions to the OpenRTB implementation. So I think that's it.
Great, thanks, George. So I'm just going to run through a couple of resources that we have, and in the meantime, if anyone has any questions on any of the content that we presented today, then please feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A box as I run through the resources. So just to point out, if you missed the beginning of this training, then you can basically go back to the Google Plus page where you registered for the training, and you'll see the recording be uploaded there right after this. And for anything else, so if you've missed a previous training, you could log on to the DoubleClick AdX Help Center, and you can find the AdX Exchange Buyer Academy there. You can take the fundamentals, you can take some learning paths. We have an AdX playbook, which gives you an up-to-date overview of all things AdX, and also a bunch of webinars and short training videos. So Krish presented the client access one. That's a short 8-minute training video. It tells you, gives you an overview of client access, and it also shows you how to add a client user to your AdX account. So yeah, go and check that out if you haven't done so already. So looking at the questions, we had an interest in the marketplace workflow. So Krish, did you mention that it was rolled out to all buyers, or is it just gradually at the moment?
It's gradually at the moment. We have currently rolled this out to a very limited beta as we are testing this out and stabilizing and fixing issues. Our current goal is to roll this out to general availability in the first half of this year, and we are currently on track to do that.
Great. So we didn't have any other questions. So just one thing to note, if you would like to get a copy of this presentation to have it alongside the recording, then please do submit your feedback to us. We really value your feedback, and we love improving our webinars for the future. So the link will be pasted into the bottom of the Google Plus page, but you can also access it via that case-sensitive link there. Okay, well, if there's no questions, then I think we can wrap up. Thank you so much to product management for presenting today, and I hope everyone found it useful. Please do let us know via the feedback form when you get a chance. So stay tuned for the copy of the presentation and the recording. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.